Good morning, everyone. This is Mr. Lopez. I am. I hope everyone's doing well. I hope everyone's also had a chance to look at the lessons for week 1 in Google Classroom. If you haven't, go ahead and just pause this video and revisit this lesson after you're finished. So today I'll be going over the PowerPoint presentation for week 2. So I'm going to present that for you guys here, and we'll walk through it. I will turn off my camera just so you guys can focus on the material. So don't worry about anything with that. Okay, so let's go over what are we doing for this week. So for week 2, what we'll be doing is reading a personal narrative, okay? So what that is exactly what it says. A narrative is another word for a story, right? So a personal narrative is a story about a specific individual. And that's what we're going to be looking at this week. So what are we going to be reading for this week? Our objectives are, we will read a short excerpt from a popular personal narrative to familiarize ourselves with the form. So we're going to read a short personal narrative from one of my favorite writers. Write. We will write out and list character traits to help gain perspective of who these characters really are. So, in what we read today, we're going to focus on a couple of characters, and the reason we do this is to get a better understanding of the narrator, because if you remember, personal narratives are about someone specifically. So, after we finish, we're going to think, how does understanding who these characters truly are help us better understand the narrator and her point of view? Well, that's the big question, isn't it? And that's a question that we have to answer not only in this week's reading, but in other readings you do throughout the year, right? So that's what we're going to be looking at today. So before we start, you should have a link to this PowerPoint, which you can complete at your own pace. Just make sure you answer each question if it asks you to do so in the slideshow. So before we start, I wanted you all to think about this question. When you were a kid, did you ever feel misunderstood? Was there ever a time when adults just didn't understand? So think about your life. And when you were younger, was there ever a moment where you weren't sure what you believed in, maybe, or really who you were? I think we all have had that experience. I know I have. Um, and during that time, especially when you're younger, it it's not always um, it's not always something that parents can understand about us, right? I know for a fact with myself, there were times when I was a kid and my mom just didn't understand me, whatever the case may be. So go ahead and answer to this question, respond to this question, and just select yes or no, just so I can get an idea of where we all are, because this is a question that's going to be addressed in the reading for this week. So before we start reading, I want us to look at a couple of vocabulary words. So this is one of them. The first one is nonsense, okay? So on this slide, for your assignment, I want you to complete each box. So in this first box, we're going to put the definition of this word. Now, if you remember, I included, if you go back to this slide, there are links here, and one of these is to the dictionary, which you can click here. And so we'll go here and we'll just type it in, right? This is one of the dictionaries that I told you guys about in week 1. that is very user-friendly. Oops. We're going to search for nonsense. If it comes up, not exactly sure why it's not finding the word. Let's try that again. Okay. So looking at the word, here are the definitions. You have three. The first one, words or ideas that are foolish or untrue. Behavior that is silly, annoying, or unkind. So you can see we have a couple of different definitions, but these two seem to be the same, 1 and 3. Language that has no meaning, words that are foolish or untrue. So what you'll do is choose the definition that you think best represents this word. We're going to go back here. And you will click in here and you should be able to, well, you'll have to do it on your end. Enter the definition, which if you can't, you can always go to Insert, Text Box, draw a square, and then you can type the definition here. That's one of two ways you can do this. After you do that, let's list some characteristics, right? So, what are some characteristics of the word nonsense? Well, if we look here, we can kind of create some or identify some of those characteristics by just looking at these definitions, right? Foolish, untrue, silly, unkind. Those are words, those are words that we can insert in these boxes, right? So this is characteristics. Now, if you want to copy the sentence here after we read the story, that is perfectly fine. Or you can write your own sentence that captures that definition best. And in the fourth box, what you're going to do here is write opposites or not examples. So if we go back to the definition, if some of the characteristics that we said were, foolish, untrue, silly, then some non-examples could be the opposite of those words. Instead of untrue, we could say true, right? Instead of silly, we can say serious. So that's what you're going to fill in this fourth box. So the whole point of this is not only to learn a new word, but to understand how it's being used in the story we're going to read this week, okay? Our second word is going to be berry. So again, you'll do what we just practiced. You'll go into the use a dictionary. You can use the one that's posted in your first week in the resources page in Google Classroom. There's a link. But that's what you want to use, and you want to complete this as well. You can also use pictures for this section. Just copy and paste it from Google, and that could work as well. Or you could draw your own picture. It's really up to you, okay? So at this moment, if you want to pause the presentation so you can complete these two slides, that is perfectly fine. Just press pause in the video, and you can come back to the video when you finish. Okay, I'm going to continue. So what are we going to be doing this week? Well, after we have finished looking at the vocabulary, We are going to read a short story by Sandra Cisneros. She's one of my favorite writers. The short story is called 11. It's about a young girl in school, and it's a personal narrative about her day, which just happens to be her birthday. After we finish reading the story, we're going to discuss major and minor characters by examining each of their character traits. So just as we went over at the beginning of the lesson, this is going to be part of our objective. And major characters is just what it sounds like. Major means big, bigger, more important. Minor means small, less important. And then when we finish for the week, our activity will be to revisit the text. So we're going to go back to the story and find examples of these traits in her short story / narrative to explain how this supports our claims. Okay, so we will look at that and go ahead and pause right here if you would like to. And I will upload another video that will include the reading of the short story and a discussion. So go ahead and view that video at this time and come back to this one when you're ready. Thank you. Okay, so by this time, you should have already read the short story 11 by Sandra Cisneros. So now that we have finished the story, let's think about this question. Why does the narrator say it's too late at the end of the story on line 91? So if you go back to the text, to her short story, what do you think the author means by this? It's a rather unique way that she describes her day at the end of the story, right? And that's part of why this story is so important as far as trying to figure out what exactly is going on with the narrator. What is that internal struggle? Or maybe the internal conflict that she has? And why does she say this? So go ahead and respond to this slide. Technically there's no wrong answer. I just want your opinion of why do you think the narrator says this towards the end of the story, right? Okay, when you finish the lesson, go ahead and move your cursor and drag the icon to the place that you feel best represents how you grasp the material in this lesson. So please do that. If you have any questions, let me know. But that concludes the video for this week. Again, make sure you read the following lesson requirements / activities. You can view this video as many times as you want, and make sure you complete the questions on each slide that it asks you to do something, okay? That will be part of your grade. So make sure you respond to these questions like this one, and these two to receive your grade for the week. But okay, guys, thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know, and y'all have a wonderful day.